It's the Vancouver Hockey Show. Andrew Wadden alongside the Healthy Scratches, Nick Hauka and Jacob Fraser. We are sponsored by Hideout Golf, Vancouver's newest golf simulator bar. Check them out at 1755 Davie Street. I know you boys got a chance to go down and check out those sims. Boy, they're fantastic. And I know with golf season starting right now, guys, a lot of people want to get out on the course. But hey, if you want to dial in your game, head on down to Hideout before you hit the links because it'll help you out with those simulators.
Or if you want to go 15 over on Augusta through 9 like me, then you can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Listen, man, I said it'll help your game. I don't know if it'll necessarily improve your game, but it'll try its best at least. Let's try our best, guys, to get through this end of season media conference from Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford, the Rutherveen regime, as they're known here on the Vancouver Hockey Show. I know we heard from the players a few days ago, but guys, I don't know. I felt like the players kind of just cliched it on the way out the door. I know there was some intrigue around Brock Besser and his future here. I think we all see the writing on the wall when it comes to Brock Besser, and I know that Elias Pettersson needs to play better. He's told us that. We'll see as he moves forward. But man, today, pretty explosive stuff from Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford. I want to start with what I thought was probably the craziest comment I've heard from any sort of management in the NHL in a really long time when talking about their star player. Asked about Quinn Hughes and his future, and of course, as everyone knows, Quinn Hughes can renegotiate his contract as of July 1st after next season. And there is, of course, some intrigue on whether, Quinn Hughes is going to stick around. Maybe he pulls a Matt Tkachuk and goes, you know what, I'm not going to sign here, so I'm going to force your hand. But this comment here from Jim Rutherford, let's just take a listen. It's a little lengthy, but man, this one has me just scratching my head, and I see a fine coming down probably in the next couple of days here for old Jimbo.
The one thing that we will be sure of, that we will have enough cap space to offer him the kind of contract that he deserves. That's the one thing we can prepare for. And it may not boil down to money with him. He said before he wants to play with his brothers. And that would be partly out of our control, in our control, if we brought his brothers here. So there's many moving parts here. Agree 100%. This franchise cannot afford to lose a guy like Quinn Hughes. And we will do everything we can to keep him here. But at the end of the day, it'll be his decision. Well, we got to be careful with tampering here, so we'll just leave it at that. I probably crossed the line anyways.
Oh, you most certainly did cross the line, Mr. Rutherford, and I love how Patrick Allvin sort of nervous laughing there next to him because he probably knows that a portion of his check might go into that fine as well. But boys, when you hear that right there, like, again, that's one of the most wildest comments I've heard from an NHL manager in quite a long time.
Well, when Canucks fans said that they wanted more transparency from management and ownership, that maybe was a little bit too far, Jim. But I mean, at least he's being honest. That's wild, though, to say. Kind of sounds like, to me, reading between the lines, it's like if it's either we get the Hughes brothers to play with Quinn or he's gone. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. So that's pretty wild to say at a press conference when this isn't really even a thing for another year and a bit, right? So yeah, that's pretty wild. Kind of at a loss for words over a NHL GM who's been around as long as him, now president, right? Saying something like that. That's just wild to me.
Yeah, the first thing that I looked at is their contracts and like what would it cost to bring in Luke and Jack Hughes from the New Jersey Devils. Jack Hughes has 6 years left on an $8 million deal, and Luke Hughes is on an expiring contract. He's an RFA coming up this season. So, I mean, maybe there's a possibility there that they could bring in the Hughes brothers, but what would that cost you? Like that starts with Elias Pettersson. Then you throw in Tom Willander, who we'll get to that in a bit, I'm sure, as well. But you throw him in, you throw DPD in, you probably have to throw Lekaramaki in as well, and then you're throwing in first-round picks. Like, it's going to be an expensive cost. So I I would love them to get that done, but I'm not sure they can. So it makes me a little bit nervous as to the future of Quinn Hughes in this organization.
Yeah, and you should be nervous. Any Canuck fan should be nervous hearing that right there. I mean, again, like you just parsed, how do you even make that deal happen? And then also, too, with what you started with there, Jack Hughes has 6 years left at $8 million per. When that contract is up, think about how much he will be worth on the open market, like double that easily, especially with the way the salary cap is going right now. So yes, how do you get all Hughes brothers on the same team when they're all, superstar players and also going to, command big dollars when it comes to their contracts? Now, Jack is probably going to be the new Nathan McKinnon when it comes to value on that contract. But at some point, those 6 years will be up, and then you're going to have to pay big time through the nose. So I don't understand how that even happens. But also, too, I think, boys, that like Rutherford's setting us up. Like, I think Rutherford is setting up the fan base to be like, hey, just be prepared here. Like, he's already planted the seed that, he does want to play with his brothers at some point. So I wonder if we're going to get into a Matthew Tkachuk situation here where he just forces the hand of this organization. What do you think? Like, and I do want to get ahead of this because, again, I never heard a comment so wild before. Maybe the last time we heard that was when Jim Bennings flat out said the Canucks were going to try and go after PK Subban, which of course he got a fine for. But guys, like, what do you think it's going to take, just to make Quinn Hughes happy? Because you talked about it being just over a year, but that's a short time there, Nick. Like, they are going to have to, turn this ship around quickly if you're going to want to keep their captain and keep their best player happy, or he's going to perhaps go elsewhere to play with his brothers.
Well, I think, first of all, this team can't be dysfunctional like they've been for the last year, right? And as Jim Rutherford spoke on the JT Miller, Elias Pettersson situation during that press conference, too, I think that's number one. Like, you can't be a team that has that go on in a professional setting. That's just not going to work. There's another couple things, too. Like, this team doesn't even have a practice facility. Right?
Oh,
like,
boy.
we're one of, I think there's 3 teams in the league that don't have one, if I read correctly. Could be wrong on that, but it's not a high amount. We're one of them. This is a prestigious hockey market, right? Like, this is Vancouver. This isn't a small town. This is a big market. There's no practice facility. Like that, I think stuff like that needs to be solved. And then when it comes to the roster construction, I do think management did a good job with the defensive core. And if Demko can come back even let's say 90% of what he was, I think goaltending's pretty good with him and Lankinen, but this forward group's a mess right now too. So you need to solve that. So I think stability within the locker room, roster, and then kind of amenities off the ice, like a practice facility and stuff like that. You have to do everything you can do to entice him at this point.
Yeah, you talk about the roster a bit. Like you said, I think the defense core is pretty shored up. The goaltending tandem is pretty solid. And so you look at that forward group, I think this team is filled with middle 6, bottom 6 wingers. They've got Philip Hedl, who's a solid middle 6 center. Teddy Bluger is a good 4th line center. But you need those top 6 guys to really be a team that's in the hunt for a Stanley Cup. So you've got to bring in two or three top 6 wingers. You've got to bring in that second line center. So it's not something that I think this team can really do in one off season, but they've got 2 years to really turn things around and start showing Quinn Hughes and the rest of the group that they really believe in this core that they have with Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson, and that they want to actually compete for a Stanley Cup. Quinn Hughes doesn't want to play for a team that's not competing for a Stanley Cup. And that's part of the reason why he wants to go to New Jersey, because his brothers are there, yes, but they're also a perennial playoff team with a good future. So I think you've got to bring in 3 or 4 forwards that can really lift this group up and make a difference on the team. And then you talk about the practice facility. My hope is that this PWHL team that's coming to Vancouver, maybe they can go in on a practice facility together and get something going as I'm not sure who's the owner of the PWHL team, but maybe the ownership groups can come together and come up with a solution for a practice facility.
I mean, they
there.
shouldn't even have to do that, though,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Like, figure
but-
it out,
Yeah.
man.
I mean, they've been talking about this practice facility since the Gillis era.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous at this point. And I mean, this isn't lay on management. And Rutherford even said that, like, because he was kind of like, I don't want to talk about this. And then he was jokingly saying that.
Yeah.
But there's some truth to it. It's not his matter to sort of speak on it. It is to a certain degree because he's the highest level face that was, speaking to the media that day or today as we record this. But like, that's a Francesco Aquilini question. Like, that's not, Jim Rutherford shouldn't have to answer that. And the fact that it's 2015 and they've been talking about it since 2010, 2011 time, like, this is just freaking ridiculous at this point. You talked about the laundry list of things that they need there, Jake. I mean, those are high, like, that's top shelf, stuff that you need to get when you talk about top six wingers. And, Rutherford said today, we need to improve down the middle, which just is so mind boggling when you think about what they went into the season with. Like, we were praising how they were like probably the best 1-2 center group in the NHL. And now all of everything that happened, and now they're sitting there going, well, we need to get better down the middle. It's wild. It's completely crazy. Can you consider, where they started or all the hope that they started with at the start of the year, and just how just completely awful and off the rails thing went for this year for the Vancouver Canucks. When you talk about, because I want to get to Petey here in a minute, but actually let's go to Petey. We'll get to talk it afterwards because while we're on it here, I mean, the fact that Rutherford had to come out and basically say that Petey needs to work harder is, again, to me, just mind-blowing, considering that you gave him, close to $90 million, and was it over 90? Whatever it was, in 8 years. And now the guy needs to work harder. Didn't you have that already figured out before you drove a dump truck full of money up to his front lawn? But, like, just listen to these comments here from Rutherford. Again, these clips are a little bit lengthy here, guys, but we want everyone to hear these. This is Rutherford on Petey and just, the steps he's taking to improve his game. Well, he's already the 5th highest player in the NHL.
I think, again, we always like these answers today, and I wish I had a good answer for you, because this is not something that he's going to be able to snap his fingers and change. Everybody's aware that because of injuries or for whatever reasons, Petey wasn't as prepared properly for the start of training camp and the start of the season. I think that became one of the issues here that started to get things flaring up. And so now he, certainly before he got hurt here and didn't play the remaining games, there were signs of him going in the right direction. He's a guy that's always going to be able to get his points. But can you be a contending team with your top player just getting points? And I can answer that question. The answer is no, you can't. So he's going to have to buy into being a complete player. He's going to have to buy into working hard. I can give you some good news. It's a small step, but he's been in here working every day now for the last few days. And that's what we like to see. And we know that he's working hard. He's not just stopping in for a cup of coffee. So that's a good sign, but he's going to have to do that all summer. He's going to have to buy into what the coach wants him to do. And part of buying in is being a complete player if you want to have a contending team.
Again, that last part there, just like, really, you're qualifying it now that he's at the end of the year and he decided to step into the gym when he's probably going to be out the door in Vancouver in the next couple of weeks anyway. And at that point, are you going to have like an ankle monitor on him or something? Like, he's, like, well, what, like, I just don't even know what to take out of that. And to be honest with you, I kind of sense a bit of frustration in Jim Rutherford. I feel like he's holding it back as well. I think in his mind, he's like, I'm trading this fucking guy. Like, I got to get rid of him, and I'm going to make sure that, people think he's doing the right things. But if I get the right offer, I'm moving on him, because this guy is not the kind of guy I can win with. I've said that before. I'm putting words in his mouth, but you guys know how I feel about the situation. And I think the president sort of agreed with me to a certain extent there.
Yeah, the thing that I find interesting with his comments there is just talking about him being a complete player and he's going to get points, but can you win with a guy that just gets points? Clearly he didn't get points this season. He had a terrible year. production-wise. But I thought one of the bright spots of his season was the fact that he was solid defensively as a centerman, which, I mean, obviously that's not what you expect from Elias Pettersson. You expect him to be that plus 100-point guy. But I'm a little bit interested by that, by him saying a complete player, a guy that buys in. I guess to a work ethic standpoint, you can see that he just wasn't necessarily bought in every night, right? He's not the guy that's going to go in hard on the forecheck, make a big hit, but I felt like he was solid defensively. So I'm a little bit confused by that complete player comment, but yeah, 100%. He's got to get a little bit more physical. Like when he's at his best, he's hitting guys. Like he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he can make some big hits, and he's separating players from pucks. He's creating chances from that offensively, and we just didn't see that at all this year. So clearly he's got that to work on. I think it's just more of a mentality thing. Like he's got to get over whatever's going on in his mind. He's got to get over that hump and just be like, fuck this. I'm a dog. I'm going to be like that guy. But
Does he
I
have
don't know.
that though, Jake? Does
Well,
he have like
that's
you
the
know?
thing. Like I don't see it from him, and I've seen it from him in flashes, but you don't see it from him night in, night out. So that's where the decision comes in. You're talking about trading him. Like unless he somehow proves that he can be that guy, which you don't have a lot of time, you don't have any games to prove to be that guy. You've just got to trust him. But yeah, I don't know if you can believe in him to be that guy.
Yeah, with those comments by Rutherford, I think first of all, I think it kind of sounds pretty apparent to me that he is echoing what you were saying, Andrew, with like he needs to change how he plays or he's not going to be that guy for us. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. And also with that though, if you're Jim Rutherford with how the season has gone and everything, why are you saying that about your star player? For a multitude of reasons. Like, you know, this guy doesn't respond to that well. And you can say what you will about that and if he's tough enough mentally, blah, blah, blah. But like, you need to understand how a player functions and works. And to me, I don't think Petey responds to that very well. Why are you calling him out in the media like that? Again, even to a worse degree. And yes, I understand you need to be able to put up with that. It's your job. I get that. But like, I think you need to be aware of how your player functions. And I don't think that was very smart. And also,
well, hold
like,
on, you want to play wear kids gloves with him? Like
no,
he's a
but like,
grown-ass man.
there's a way to say it, right? You could be like, look, he had a really bad year. It wasn't good enough. He knows that. We believe he's going to figure it out going forward, rather than just flat out calling him out like that. You know what I mean? Because like, he doesn't function like that. He doesn't work like that. He shuts down. Is that something he needs to work on? Yes, absolutely. But I think you kind of see it. He doesn't respond well to that. So why are you like so stuck in this mindset with how this player functions that you're calling him out like that? And the other thing with that is, obviously NHL GM knows what's going on, but if I'm a GM and I hear him say that in the public, like that decreases his value big time for me. Because I'm saying, not only do I know this about this player, this president is so frustrated with this player that he's just blatantly calling him out in front of the media at an end of year presser. Like, we can get this guy for way less than what he's actually worth at this point. That's what it kind of seems like to me.
Yeah, I mean, Rutherford he acknowledged the fact that like he made a trade years ago, and this was more, he was talking more about Thatcher Demko, because, and we're going to get the Demko in a moment, but just the fact that Demko's got an injury that some people say is going to be hard to come back from, and Rutherford qualified the fact that he's 100% now, but he talked about how he made a trade when he was with Carolina for Gary Roberts, when Gary Roberts had that neck injury, and that a lot of people said that Gary Roberts was going to be able to come back from that. And then, as we know, he had a good time at Carolina, and then it went on to play years in Toronto as well. So, he talked about it, maybe some people, and the correlation I'm making here is, maybe some people thought that Roberts was written off at that time. I know it's injury as opposed to performance, but maybe some people are thinking that Pettersson's written off now, and, you guys perhaps can change it. I don't know. But what I do, at least I think, is that Jim Rutherford never wanted Elias Pettersson out of the two when it came to him and JT Miller. I think that Jim Rutherford's hand was forced when it came to who he was going to keep. Now, that could have been from ownership, but that also could have been internally within the locker room as well, right? And maybe the divide was there. That I don't know. But what I'm tend to believe is that JT Miller is a Jim Rutherford type player, whereas Elias Pettersson isn't. But again, circumstance might have been that, his hand was forced in terms of who he had to stick with. Because he did talk about that when he talked about the riff. We're not going to play the clip because I feel like we've just gone over this whole scenario so many times. And the fact that they had to even, give us more detail today was like, all right, like, uncle, we've had enough of this, right? But he basically praised JT Miller and said that, Miller was his, not his type of player, but he admired his game, I guess, to paraphrase. Now, it's not that he threw Pettersson under the bus as well, but there was some tire pumping going on there with JT Miller and maybe some regret maybe in his voice as well. Again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I don't know about you two. I would be not surprised at all, though, if, July 1st, there is an Elias Pettersson trade of some sort, and maybe it's just for a couple of pieces to be able to sort of build out around, as you talked about, Jake, with the fact that they do have a laundry list or a shopping list of things to get done in the offseason. Let's keep it moving here, though. One of the things to get done in the offseason, and it sounds like this one's going to happen pretty quickly, is the status of Rick Tocchet. The Rutherford came out today and talked about Tocchet. Found it very interesting that he did a solo presser before the management sat down, which of course was done during the players' time a couple of days ago. But let's just hear Rutherford here on Tocchet as he talked about the team option and how, well, they're not going to force Tocchet to stick around if he doesn't want to.
We will not exercise the team option for him to stay. We don't feel it's right to have somebody here that may have his mind somewhere else. And I'd say that about anybody. This is not just about talk. But we believe that, and I believe, that Talk and his coaching staff did as good a job coaching this team this year as they did the year before when he was coach of the year. Now, he was dealt a totally different hand this year. When the team won the division, it was a lot of good work by him, a lot of good work by the players, but everything went right. This year, we've talked enough about, the incident that happened and affected the chemistry of the room and affected the play of the team in the first half and forced a trade. But with all that going on, how he handled the situation and how he handled the team was really good. So I give him and his staff kudos for the job they did this year. As for his contract, we've gone through a process we've negotiated. I would suspect sometime this week he'll have a decision. We have gone a long ways from where coaches have been compensated with the Canucks for years, forever actually, and we're hoping that he takes that contract and stays.
That last bit is very important. And when he said we and then forever, I mean, how long has Jim Rutherford been here? He's speaking from ownership there at that point, right? Ownership has a number. They don't want to get off it. And it sounds to me like they're playing a little bit of chicken now with Rick Tocchet. I think Rick Tocchet, though, holds the bullets here as well, though, right? Like the fact that the team is, A, not going to exercise the team option, and B, he does have options to go elsewhere. Rutherford all but admitted that there when he said, his head could be elsewhere, right? And with the vacancies around the league, I mean, the guy won the Jack Adams last year. Of course, he's going to be on people's shorts lists, right? So I thought that was very, very interesting, very telling what Rutherford said there on Tocchet. I think, guys, it just comes down to now whether Rick Tocchet feels like, A, the number's going to be right, but also B, whether this is the team and, the core that he can move forward with. Because think about it, as we've already talked about on the show, like Elias Pettersson could be gone in this offseason and Quinn Hughes might walk. Those are two things that just could happen. You lose those two guys, boy, you're going to have a hard time, getting that roster back together, especially with a talent like Quinn Hughes. I mean, he's arguably top 5, top 10 player in the league.
Yeah, I actually like the process here by them with everything going on with Tocchet. Like, I think from a management perspective, you want to get on the same page as your head coach, so you're moving in players that suit his system and you're working cohesively. So I actually really like that. You're saying to him, hey, are you with us long term or not? If not, it's okay, we'll move off of you, but you're not like wasting a year essentially with him as your head coach when you're going to ultimately move on from him. So from that perspective, I actually really like that. And I also like committing to a coach that is good at what he does and is able, even in adverse situations like this year, to elevate your team to a certain level long term. So it's a clear, concise message. You're not flipping between coaches all the time, and you're trying to find the right guy long term. So in this instance, I actually really like what they're doing and their process here.
Yeah, and well, I think like if you don't bring Tocchet back, we heard Quinn Hughes talk about how he wants his coach back on Friday. I wonder if you don't bring him back, like, is this team headed for a huge shift in core? Like, is that the point where you go, okay, we're moving off of Tocchet, we're just gonna retool again here, and maybe you get a haul for Quinn Hughes and you send him to New Jersey, and then you send Elias Pettersson somewhere else, and you kind of start from scratch at that point. Because we've talked about this many times, like this core doesn't deserve another head coach, right? And so I think if you don't bring Tocchet back, then that could be where this organization's headed. I think he is probably the right coach for this team, especially for Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes seemed to love him. So if you want to build around Hughes, then bring Tocchet back. And if you're thinking Hughes is going to leave in 2 years, then you go, okay, we're just going to figure out another plan for this team's future.
So let's see here. You go Tocchet and Hughes for Sheldon Keefe, Nico Heischer, maybe Dougie Hamilton, and a couple firsts. I don't know, something like that. Coach trade. I don't know if you want Sheldon Keefe.
This the early 2000s. We're doing coaches trades now.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is maybe Tocchet sort of knows more than others, right? Because he's definitely a player's coach, and he's definitely got the ear of Quinn Hughes. And with Rutherford even just suggesting that he wants to go play with his brothers and just putting that into the universe is very interesting. Maybe they're starting to connect dots here. It's like that Charlie Day meme from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got all the stuff connecting. Maybe we're onto something. Before they get to Villander, let's get to, I want to do him last. Let's just talk about the current players. Brock Besser's future in Vancouver. No clip here, but this was interesting, and this is, hockey internet sort of bullshit probably, but he was seen photographed at least in his car with what looked like a team jersey. So you guys saw that signed by everybody. Now, I don't know. I don't want to put a whole lot of stock into all that. And, maybe some guys just do that every year as well, right? For something for the man cave. So I found that to be very funny, very, very Vancouver for sure. Somebody started trying to look a little bit deeper into, the car while he's signing an autograph to somebody outside of Rogers Arena. But I think the key really with Besser in terms of the way the sort of relationship has gone is those comments that were made by Patrick Alvin at the trade deadline saying, if you saw the offers we were getting for Brock Besser, and basically just sewered the player at that point. And that's going to be tough to come back from. But tact really hasn't been something that Patrick Alvin has nailed throughout his time as a general manager. He's very blunt, maybe is the right word there. They did admit that they're going to let him test free agency, and I think that's probably the right thing if you're the Besser camp. But they said they're not ruling out a return. If you had to do a percentage, guys, of Besser coming back, what would you give it?
I think I would give it around 10-15%.
Oh, wow, low. Wow.
Yeah, I'd say 2%. I think after those comments and how he has been treated, if I'm him, I'm not coming back. I don't care how much I love it here. If I've built a family here and I've built a home here and everything, no way. I'm a very valuable hockey player. I know I was very for trading him, and I still think they should have.
They should have
be in this situation.
Yeah.
But he is a player of very high value. He can score goals at a high clip in the NHL. He's always going to have value. He is worth so much more than how this organization treated him, and I would be appalled if I was him. And I'm pretty sure he is, right? So I would leave instantly if I was him.
I'll give it a 25% chance just because of what Jake talked about earlier and the fact that they really can't afford to be losing or peeling off top six wingers right now. Maybe they'll circle back to him at some point. I could see him sort of being out there for, a week, maybe 2 weeks come free agency, because I think that his camp is going to be trying to hit a home run. And I don't know how many teams are going to want to step up to the plate for a 7-year deal, at least with him, whether it's 7-8 million per, who knows. At the same time too, though, with some of the bigger names that, could hit free agency, if they don't end up hitting it, then maybe, he becomes that much more valuable in other people's eyes. But I think Brock Besser's days here in Vancouver might be done, which is kind of unfortunate because of the fact that just, he is beloved by this fan base. And if you really think about of this sort of new core that came up and through, he was the first guy to sort of get a bit of excitement amongst the fan base after 10 years of just absolute bullshit here. Thatcher Demko, they talked about an extension with him. Again, no clip here. I just thought that Patrick Alvin sort of chose his words wisely when he was talking about Thatcher Demko. I mean, there is the fact that they did give Kevin Lankinen a 5-year deal at a, not an under significant amount of money, but a decent amount of money, right? But the way the cap's going, that contract will look a lot better, 2-3 years into the deal. But yeah, like I said, he sort of danced around the fact that, that they can extend Thatcher Demko. To me, guys, this is just a show and prove, basically. Like, listen, we got to see what we got with you. And, if it come January and we feel comfortable next year, I could see them giving him an extension, because let's be honest with ourselves. Thatcher Demko is miles above Kevin Lankinen when it comes to goaltending. Thatcher Demko is Vezina caliber, and if he can get himself back to that, I could see the Canucks extending him, early next season.
Yeah, assuming, if he can have a healthy season, play back to even near what he was showing that he was capable of, I think it would make sense to extend him. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't make sense until around that January mark. And even if, depending on how next season goes too, he could be a really attractive trading piece come the deadline. I know they don't seem to want to make those deadline deals, but it could make sense next season if things aren't going the Canucks way, but he's playing at a solid level and he's an upcoming UFA. So yeah, I wouldn't expect any kind of extension until around that January, February mark, maybe even closer to the deadline. But I definitely hope that he can get back up to that caliber of goaltending, even near that, and just be a healthy NHL goalie that can play 50 games a season. I think that would be great for the Canucks, and that could be a really good goaltending tandem with Demko and Lankinen in net if things do work out for him and for the future.
Yeah, and Rutherford mentioned that he's taking that more preventative measure when doing his training now, and he correlated that back to Gary Roberts, as you mentioned earlier, right?
Yeah.
So and Rutherford seemed to be fairly confident that he was getting back on the right track, and said Demko kind of felt better than he had in a long time. So hopefully that stays. I think the NHL is better with that guy playing at the top of his game, because when he is a blast to watch, not even just from a Canucks perspective, just as a hockey fan, watching that guy dive across the crease and making unreal save after unreal save is pretty awesome to watch. So hopefully we can find that again.
And he could be a real key factor too in some big decisions that others are going to make, and by others I mean Quinn Hughes, right? If Quinn Hughes feels comfortable that Thatcher Demko is that Vezina caliber goaltender that he's going to move forward with in his next contract, and they're going to be pieces to keep this team on the rise, because as we've seen, they were on the rise last year. Now they've taken a little bit of a dip here. So yeah, Thatcher Demko could be a big key to sort of the future of the Vancouver Canucks here over the next little while. And let's keep in mind too, as we sort of go through all of this stuff, there's a tinge of negativity that's around it all, but you do have to, like the fact that they do have some pieces coming. And one of those pieces is Tom Willander. Now, I'm not going to go out and say that, Tom Willander is going to play all 4 seasons in Boston University and then force the hand of the Canucks to move him. But, today there's some interesting comments here from Patrick Alvin, because as everyone knows, Tom Willander has not signed yet with the Vancouver Canucks. It sounds like he's heading towards playing his junior season at Boston University. Here's the Canucks GM on where the negotiations are going.
I was aware that the Swedish national team had interest in Tom leading up to the World Championship for some pre-game tournaments there. his advisor has informed us that he was going back to school. We feel our staff has been in communication. Our development staff, Michael Samuelson and Komisarek, has built a great relationship with Tom during the year, and they felt that he was ready to turn pro after 2 years in 2 successful years in Boston University. I mean, it's a lot of lot of money for a young player to pass on. But that's the information we had here as of last week from his agent, that the intention was to go back to school.
Yeah, it's kind of classic Patrick Alvin there, you know. Listen, Patty, that number doesn't change though if he goes and excuse me, plays his junior season. Like, it's an entry level contract. It maxes out at a certain amount of money. So to even bring that up, I thought was a little bit cheeky from Alvin. Almost sounds like he's somewhat kind of bullying him a little bit, you know, being like, wow, you're going to turn around that money, you know, and you're ready to go pro. Well, maybe he loves Boston University. Maybe he's like, you know, strutting around that campus, getting all the girls. Who knows? I mean, he's a nice looking Swedish guy. Who knows, right? Like, maybe he's just enjoying his time being a college student and isn't ready to, you know, have the pressures of pro hockey just yet. I just found those comments to be very much Patrick Alvin, but at the same time too, I don't think Canuck fans need to panic, at least just yet.
Yeah, well, speaking of bullies, he shouted out scout Mike Komisarek.
Yeah.
Maple Leafs legend.
Oh, God.
Shout out him. Loved watching that guy as a kid, actually.
They still paying his contract?
Maybe. Him and David Clarkson.
Yeah.
Anyway, is he going to learn about, like, how to talk about athletes? Patrick Alvin, that is, not Mike Komisarek. Like, dude, you just did this with Besser and you got, like, ripped for it. Why are you doing it again? Like, God forbid the guy goes back and gets his education, right? Like, you got a really good stable of defensemen right now. There's no pressure. Obviously, you want to see the guy play. Just leave it. Like, try to be nice, maybe. I don't know. The backhanded kind of comments are just, it's getting a little old for me personally. Like, there's just a certain respect you need to have when you talk about your players. And I feel like he really lacks it sometimes. It's kind of frustrating to listen to.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I do wonder though, like I talked about earlier, this team needing to upgrade their top 6. He's the top prospect in the Canucks organization. Right shot defenseman, has a lot of potential. He's looking like he could be a good top 4 defenseman. So I wonder if he's going to be in this organization for much longer. I think he would be the number one trade piece that they would have to involve if they wanted to upgrade the top 6. And if they're serious about building a team this off season that can actually push for playoffs and contend, then my guess would be he's probably going to be out the door, and you're hoping to bring in that top 6 forward, winger or centerman. So yeah, I do wonder if that's part of the reason why he hasn't signed yet. If he kind of sees the writing on the wall a little bit, this right side is looking a lot better than it did when they drafted him. And I just wonder if he's kind of thinking, I don't want to sign with the Canucks because I might not be one much longer.
Yeah, the college thing is, they got to get, it's a huge loophole for those players, right? I mean, I know you got to do all 4 years or whatever. Is it years or is it how old you are? I can't remember exactly what it is.
I think it's 3 years from when you get drafted.
Okay, there you go. So, you know, that they got to do something about that, because it gives that player way too much leverage than, say, somebody that comes out at CHL or from Europe and whatnot. But at the same time, too, I keep going back to Quinn Hughes, because if Quinn Hughes isn't going to be here for the future, then and you're going to peel off somebody like Tom Willander, because then that's going to have to be, you know, one of your future pieces on the back end. Also, too, looking at that, where that blue line is right now, like Tyler Myers is part of that top 6 group. Like, Tyler Myers is going to need to be replaced like soon, right? So do you want to be peeling off a right shot defenseman who looks like, he's going to be a very good pro? I don't know really where his ceiling's going to be. I don't think he's going to be a big point producing guy, but he does look like he's going to be a solid D-man, for many years to come in the NHL, barring injury, of course. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting, comments there from Alvin. Very interesting approach by the Villander group, because there was something that came out last week, and it might have been Frank Saravelli just getting a, bad information from somebody, but he had, said that it looked like it was happening, and, it was just a matter of time. And then he retracted those statements. And then, of course, our buddy Rick Dollywall was digging in a little bit deeper. I know they had, I believe it's Todd Diamond. I think that's who the agent is for Villander. They had the agent at least on Donnie and Dolly today. And some of the comments that were coming out of there are quite interesting, because it sounds like, the Canucks in that camp might be, I don't know if it's at odds with another, but just maybe not seeing eye to eye right now. It will be good for him to go and work with the Swedish national team, though.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. So we'll see where that goes with Tom Villander. Let's see where we go here with the Vancouver Hockey Show, because the Canucks, of course, are done playing hockey, but there's the best time of the year when it comes to hockey happening right now. So I don't know about you guys. I don't want to go away anywhere. I think we should sort of maybe turn the cap around and focus on the rest of the league in the NHL playoffs. So we will be back with weekly episodes, and, anytime there'll be any Canucks news, we'll get that into the pod, of course, and we'll follow the Stanley Cup playoffs here. But guys, as we saw last year, obviously in a fantastic run for the Vancouver Canucks. I know it didn't last as long as most people would want to, but when you consider where they came from, like, a couple rounds of extra hockey was pretty fun for the Vancouver fan base out here. And then, of course, it seemed like the rest of Canada kind of got on board with the Edmonton Oilers. I know some people listening to this pod might have just puked in their mouth when they think that, but let's be honest, like, I think it captivated Canada quite a bit. Do you guys think this is going to happen this year? I mean, we got 5 of the 7 teams now from Canada, in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Do you guys think we're going to get that kind of run? Like, do you see, maybe, I mean, it might be tough for a team like Montreal or, maybe even Ottawa. We'll see, because it is the Leafs and they love to puke all over themselves. But do you see a team from Canada maybe perhaps making another run, like going deep, maybe even a cup final, maybe even winning one this year?
I mean, it really pains me to say this, but watching the Leafs game yesterday, they did look a little bit different. Like, I mean, we saw the production from Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, like some of those guys who in the past have really gotten a little bit hated on for their lack of production in the playoffs. They looked really good, and I would say they maybe got bailed out on a few power plays, but I don't know, this Leafs team, they look different, and you got a back end that looks a lot better than it has in the past. They definitely could be a team that goes on a run. And then, I mean, you can't ever count out the Edmonton Oilers with just Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, arguably 2 of the best players in the world. Well, not arguably 2 of the best.
The 2
arguably,
best,
yeah.
Nate McKinnon might have something to say about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, you can't ever count them out. And I saw Charles Barkley had the Oilers and Maple Leafs in the finals. So it's his guaranteed bracket. It must be happening.
Do not want the Charles Barkley. It's a kiss of death, guaranteed. It's a kiss of death. Well, what about you, Nick? Like, because Jake didn't even mention them. I think Winnipeg might. If Winnipeg can get through that side of the bracket, they've got a hell of a good chance of winning the West.
Yeah, like, I think it's really early right now for them, but one thing that I did like in game 1 is this has kind of been a team that just folds in the playoffs when things don't go their way, right? But they overcame adversity in that game. They were down, they came back, kept going, played behind their crowd that was bumping as always. It doesn't hold that many people as compared to other rinks, but it is loud. And I really like the build of their team, right? You have, like, Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor are so good together. Like, they're awesome to watch. Scheifele does all the dirty work, and of course is a very talented player in his own right, and just finds a way to set up Connor, and he has that unreal shot. Like, that 1-2 punch is awesome to watch. I like their decor. And they have physical guys in their bottom 6. I think they have the right makeup to make a run. And also, not to pile on, but with Toronto, if their power play continues to look like it did yesterday, that's a winning formula.
Yeah. I agree with Jake, and you guys know my bias, but there were a couple of soft calls there. I mean, Matthews might have Had a little Bambi legs on that one hit from behind or whatnot. But hey, listen, you're going to put a team like that on the power play, and they're going to make you pay big time. 5 forward group that they have there, it's pretty lethal. But my money's on Winnipeg, guys, going the furthest amongst the Canadian teams. I think that Toronto, actually, I'll just say it out loud. I mean, just with the Leafs sort of background, it's hard to say this out loud, but like Toronto's path is easier. But that second round is going to be tough for them. The second round is going to be tough for Winnipeg if they get through as well. It doesn't matter if it's Tampa or Florida or Colorado or Dallas. Like, both Canadian teams on that side are going to have a tough time. One thing we do know, though, is there's going to be at least one Canadian team in the second round, right? Between the Toronto and Ottawa. So if the Leafs continue to look the way they do, maybe they can make a deep run. But I think if I had to put money down on it, I think Winnipeg makes the deepest run out of all the Canadian teams, because I could see Toronto running into a Florida team again and not being able to get by them. But hey, we'll continue to look into the playoffs here on the Vancouver Hockey Show, and then, dive into anything that we get from the Vancouver Canucks, expecting a decision from Rick Tocchet this week. So maybe something good to chew on in next week's episode. All right, for the Healthy Scratches, Nick Hauka, Jacob Fraser, I'm Andrew Wadden. Thanks for listening, everyone.